Feels like they've all had a falling out. They're sat very far away. Yeah. All right. Good evening and welcome to tonight's Governance Committee, everybody. I'm Councillor Tim Lunnan. I'm the chair of the committee. We don't have members of the public. For all existing councillors, there's no scheduled fire drills tonight, so if the fire alarm does go off, react accordingly. This meeting is being live streamed via the council's YouTube channel, so please note there is no comments function as part of this webcasting. The council is the data controller and will retain the data collected during this webcast. This will be done in accordance with the council's published retention policy. Councillors are reminded to note what's displayed on the screens, and if you wish to speak, please press the button and wait until your face appears on the screen before speaking, and please turn off your microphone when you finish. On to the agenda. Item 1, apologies. Have we had any apologies? We have received apologies from Councillors Chance and Sivaraja. Have we received any further apologies? I think everybody else is here.
Yep, everyone else is here, Chair.
Fantastic. Number 2, disclosures of interest. Are there any disclosures of interest councillors wish to declare? No. Fantastic. Item 3, the minutes. Does the committee approve the minutes of the meeting of the Governance Committee held on the 4th of March 2025? I don't see an objection, so I'll take that as approved. Thank you very much, Meds, for writing those. Item 4 is public question time. We don't have any members of the public here. So moving swiftly on to item 5, the draft annual governance statement 2024-2025, which starts on page 9 of the agenda pack. The statement is set out as Appendix A on page 11 of the pack, and I'll be asking Anna Pedlow, the Corporate Performance Manager, to present the item.
Thank you, Chair. So the purpose of this report, as you're aware, it's a requirement of the Accounts and Audit Regulations 2015 that all local authorities produce an annual governance statement. And obviously it's a function of the Governance Committee to monitor and review the governance arrangements of the Council. This report sets out the latest draft of the annual governance statement for 24-25. And just sort of going through the report, so in terms of the draft statement itself, overall, we haven't reported any significant risks or actions. However, we have acknowledged that local government reorganisation and the move to a new strategic authority presents challenges and opportunities which are being worked on closely with corporate management team and members. And we will ensure critical functions and processes operate in a safe and a secure way through clear and appropriate governance arrangements. So that's clearly identified in the AGS. As part of the review of the governance arrangements, we also look at any areas that may present some challenges. Obviously, I've just mentioned local government reorganisation. So under section 7 within the document, we've listed areas to consider for 25-26. So that's looking at terms of our financial resilience. So that's kind of carrying over from the previous year into 24-25 and into 25-26. It's something that we obviously keep closely monitored, and it's obviously part of our strategic risks. Regulator of social housing, so that's just sort of looking at the ongoing improvements on the outcome of the recent review. We've also got the LGA Corporate Peer Challenge. So obviously we had the report and the action plan, and so we've referenced the 10 recommendations that obviously we will report on in the next AGS. And we've also given consideration to the local audit strategy. So that's the local audit office that will be coming forward sort of over in the sort of the coming year. So we'll just closely monitor the impact that potentially may have on sort of officer time and capacity. So that will be kept closely monitored. So all of those updates will obviously feature in the 25-26 AGS, but those are sort of the key areas that we have considered as part of this review. And anything from the previous AGS, the majority of those have been completed or obviously carried over, but that's only really the budget one. And obviously what didn't happen was the Office for Local Government we identified previously, but obviously that's been scrapped and we don't need to consider that, so that doesn't need to be carried over. So on the whole, everything's looking promising. Obviously at the point of publishing this report, we didn't at the time have the annual internal audit conclusion report and opinion because of the timing of the audit committee, but I can sort of verbally say that we have had reasonable an opinion. So obviously that will be included in the final version that will then obviously be presented to the audit committee in November. The timelines obviously tie in with our financial timelines and the statement of accounts, so that's why that will then be approved in November. So on the whole, that's sort of the draft as it stands. So if there's an opportunity if the committee have any questions or comments that can be considered. Thank you.
Thank you for your presentation. I'll now open up the item for debate. Please indicate your wish to speak by raising your hand. Councillor Lanza.
Yeah, thank you, Chair, and thank you for the report. I just wanted to refer to a few pages. So on page 14, I think it was really good news with the Regulator of Social Housing Inspection to award our service the second highest possible rating. And yeah, I think congratulations to all concerned with that. Pages 15 and 18 refer to financial resilience and the need to draw down on reserves for 1.2 million in the year under review. But it's worth noting, and also, of course, just about maintaining reserves, revenue reserves above the minimum recommended level of £3 million. But again, things have moved on since that report, and I think I'm right in saying we're looking to bolster those revenue reserves to something like 4.2 million, which is again is a good piece of news that's worthy of note. Thank you.
Do you wish to answer that, or are you happy with that?
Yeah, no, that's fine. I'll take those bits on board. Thank you.
Councillor Crowe.
Thank you, Chairman. And again, thank you for the officer for producing the report. I think section 7, which you highlighted whilst introducing the report, I think those are the right governance issues to flag. And I will just flag the first one about financial resilience, and it's something that I mentioned at last week's cabinet meeting as well, around the difficulty in the realisation of savings, as well as the financial position overall. But we were told by the head of finance, corporate finance, that the report further in the year would have a bit more information on how the council is progressing against its savings targets for this year. But clearly, financial resilience is a key one to watch, as well as local government reorganisation. This section 7, it almost reads like a bit of a risk register, and there is one other thing that I really want to just flag that I'm sure will be on the radar of officers, even if it's not in this report, and it's around recruitment and retention. And I don't want to get into particular posts and particular officers, but clearly, as we know, the council will cease to exist in about 2.5 years or so. This could potentially become an issue for particular posts, especially when you think there are some posts that are particularly sort of specialist skills and experience, or have specific legal responsibilities, and of course just the experience of heads of service, or indeed those at the very top of the paid service. So it's just something that obviously I'm sure we're all alert to, but it's not specifically referenced here as such. But of course, it wouldn't just be for, I think it's all local authorities that and it could be argued it's part of the risks around local government reorganisation, because of course it's not just ourselves, it's all the other councils in the 2-tier areas that are going through this process. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. And again, do you wish to answer to that, particularly the review?
Just to sort of confirm, in terms of the strategic risk register, we do have recruitment and retention is identified as a risk on there, alongside, obviously, we have local government reorganisation there as well. So it is something that's regularly reported and updated by corporate management team, and obviously it feeds into the audit committee updates as well. So it's certainly something that we're well aware of and keeping an eye on.
Nobody else? I'll just quickly sum up by saying, again, thank you for the report, thank you for your work, and I think it's fair to say that I agree with the statement in the executive summary that government arrangements have been operating effectively during the year, and they remain fit for purpose. So thank you very much. Moving on the agenda, we are with... Oh, sorry. Yeah, I need to actually say something formal, sorry. All committee members have had the opportunity to speak. No comments have been made Sorry, I move that the comments made by the committee be incorporated into the final annual governance statement. I'm not sure they will be, actually. I don't think there's any changes to the statement, so I think we're keeping the statement as it is. Yeah, I think we're agreeing no change on that, sorry, yeah. So I therefore propose the committee's support of the draft annual governance statement to be noted. Do we all agree? Thank you very much. The recommendation is therefore being carried. So the next item is the update on the community governance review. The Democracy and Data Manager, Chris Pedlow, will now provide us with an update on the community governance review. I believe he's going to do a small presentation and he will take questions at the end. So please make note of your questions and ask them all at the end so he can get through what he has got to present, and it is interesting. So over to you, Chris.
Thank you, Chair. So following the decision of full council in July, there was a resolution to investigate the possibility of establishing a Crawley Town Council. This is done through a Community Governance Review, CGR. In the Constitution, Governance Committee is responsible for investigating CGRs. So I'm just going to do a small presentation about community governance reviews and where we are. So the presentation will be split into 4 short parts. What is the CGR? What will be considered as in Crawley's CGR, the initial timetable, and what functions could be considered in a town council. So what is a community governance review? A community governance review is the legal process to establish or amend parish councils, where they consider the size, population, the boundaries, and whether wards should be established within the town or parish councils. It's a very strong legal basis to this, and there's strong timetables and terms within this. It also includes the requirement of 2 sets of consultations with residents and community groups being affected by the town or parish, or the proposed town or parish or changes. A key factor of community governance reviews is considered the impact of community governance arrangements and community cohesion. So in terms of Crawley, the purposes what will be considered as part of the review is should a new should a Crawley Town Council be set up? Should it cover, as suggested or as directed by full council, the whole town in a single town council, or should it be should only some parts? Should it be based on neighbourhoods? If it is town-wide, should there be wards? Can you split the town or parishes into wards? And what facilities should be considered within the responsibility of the town council, as well as how many councillors or town councillors should represent the town or parish? In terms of timescale, this is a very draft timescale because at the meeting, I'll just quickly go through. So between September and October, we're working on it. So what we're proposing is that 2 new governance meetings within the next year be established. One on the 13th of October is where the Governance Committee agree the terms of reference and the timetable, hopefully loosely based on the one in front of you, which once it does, we have to stick to it. So once governance agrees, we have to stick to it and the terms of reference. Then the first set of consultation will commence on what, loosely based on the principles I've just stated, what do we want for a town council, should we have one? This should last for about 6 weeks period. We will then write up a final report based on the consultation. This will then come to an additional governance committee on the 3rd of February. Governance will consider the recommendations for a second consultation, exactly what, if required, a town council would look like and what its parameters are. We will then consult till the 31st of March. A final report will then come to governance in the new municipal year, provisionally on the 25th of June, for a final decision of full council on the 16th of July. All the guidances and all the direction should be that a CGR is done within a year, so it's quite a tight time scale, and we've always also taken into consideration the pre-election period, so it has that broken into it. And then the final aspect would be the community governance order being made approximately in September 26, with any elections would be to align with any shadow elections, or should it be taken forward. So the next slide is to do with the functions for a town council or parish council. So the slide is split into key functions of Crawley Borough Council and County Council. The two in blue are statutory functions which will automatically go through to the unitary. So obviously adult social care, education, libraries, roads, these are all functions of the County Council, and this would automatically go through to the unitary. From Crawley Borough Council's responsibilities, housing, litter, council tax, licensing, all of those functions are regulatory and statutory functions would be to the new unitary. There are other functions which majority will likely go to the unitary, but we've also put on there some ones which could go to the to a town council. I'll go a bit more on this in the next slide, but these are some suggestions of where things could go or for consideration. So these are the functions. And split into two parts. The one on the right, on the left. And all of these functions, I should say, are across the country. There are town or parishes, large parishes that take some of these functions or the equivalents. So the longer list on the left are functions which are regularly covered by town councils and are very usual. Ones for town council to look at. Ones on the right are more complex, but still are more larger areas. But there's still ones that town councils could do. But they also have larger risks, and there are other factors that maybe need to be considered, whether they should be going to the new unitary or to a town council, should it be required. So that's just the presentation. Happy to take your questions. It's just quite a short presentation.
Okay. Thank you, Chris, if you stop presenting. Okay, thank you for that. So, does anybody have any questions? I'm sure there will be many. Excellent. I'm going to alternate. Let's start with Councillor Lanza.
Thanks for the presentation. One initial question. Can we put that last slide up again, please, with the one after that, I think. Yeah, that's it. Yeah. I mean, when we look at the functions that could be within a town council, do we have a feeling for the level of revenue spend that would be associated with that as a proportion of the total revenue spend of the council today? So to what extent would having those functions in a town council, what proportion of Crawley Borough Council services would that make up by spend?
We haven't looked into those sort of figures. All I am doing with this and the details in terms of drilling down into expend revenues will be part that will come through into the second set of consultation. So no, I don't have any of those sort of figures. This is just hypothetical. What could, what couldn't at this stage.
I mean, where I'm coming from with this is really, when does a hypothetical town council almost approach what was the borough council, and therefore almost a recreation of two-tier, which is what the government's trying to avoid?
I mean, I think Chris has made clear that we're not doing spending at this point, but to answer your question, just broadly, housing isn't included. So housing is a very, very significant part of Crawley Borough Council spending. So I don't think it would get anywhere near from a spending. But that is to be seen in second consultation if we go ahead. Yeah. Yeah, go on.
Sorry, yeah, if it's based on what, sorry, just in response, there's also the third or the first blue function. They're the functions that cannot be responsibility of a town council. So the housing, benefits, litter collection, council tax collection, none of those statutory functions could be. And please note, I'm not advocating for any of these functions. I'm just giving the options here on that.
I'm going to move on for now, Councillor Lanza, but feel free to come back later if you have more questions, if that's okay. Councillor Jones, if you didn't indicate? No, sorry, I thought you had. Sorry. Okay, I thought, fair enough. Councillor Irvine. And just for clarity, I've also got Councillor Crowe and Councillor Yiani. Anybody else indicating so far? But you can indicate later after people have made their contributions. No. Councillor Irvine.
Well, my question was a bit similar to Councillor Lanza. I was just interested at what point, I know it's difficult, we might get an indication of how much the individual cost to the taxpayer would be for a town council along these lines. And also, I appreciate that housing would probably be far too big a function for a town council to look after. But is it a statutory service? Because let's face it, there's not that many councils around here anyway that still have their housing stock. But the one I'm mostly interested in when we get some indication of how much this will cost.
It will depend on what the results of consultation are. The whole point of the first round of consultation is to say here are the options, what would you like? And then once we know where the direction of the public, if there is a direction, or from members, then the finer details can be worked out. So if I use one of the ones on the screen, if, for example, the idea of the Horth or K2 isn't there, obviously there's a significant revenue and capital expenditure on that, then things will be worked out. But once we know what the consultation is, what the feeling is across the borough, if there is one for a town council, and what areas could be included, then we can work those details out. It doesn't happen at this stage. But there's also a factor of, I think it's section 24, where we can't be seen to take assets away. So there must be calculations by the 151 officer of that. Is this in the best interest of the residents as well? So some of these functions, whilst they're listed, may not be practically able to come across.
The question on housing as to whether it's a statutory function, I think Suraj said something.
The housing stock's not a statutory function because we could obviously transfer it externally. But homelessness, yeah, I mean, if you look at the blue list, the homelessness function's a statutory function. Providing housing, yeah, we've got a duty, but we can do that in different ways. But I don't think that would be...
It's the housing and homelessness aspect. It's the homelessness aspect.
Is that the one you're asking about, homelessness, or the housing stock?
Sorry, you've got the housing and homelessness bracketed together. I appreciate they're different because they're funded differently, and I'm just wondering about saying that the housing is statutory when actually probably it's not, is it? Our Crawley Homes isn't statutory, is it? Something we've chosen to do.
I think, Council, that probably refers to not just the housing options, but also the housing needs. So if you think about the choice base, the housing register, all the bandings, applications, there's that element of housing as well as the homelessness side. So that's probably why those are banded together rather than the housing stock.
Are you happy enough at the moment, Councillor Irvine? Thank you. Councillor Quay.
Thank you, Chairman. Just firstly, as a sort of riposte to Councillor Lands, he said about the government wanting to move away from two-tier. Well, actually, we're looking at three-tier, of course, because, of course, there's the mayoral combined authority as well, although there won't be the Police and Crime Commissioner. That will be going. Well, firstly, you went through the presentation very quickly. Can members of the committee have a copy of it emailed to them? Or, that would be really helpful because, I realised there was a screen behind me, but there's a lot to take in, and you canter for the screens quite quickly, so that's really useful to sort of just see that, especially around the proposed timetable. I note, across West Sussex, there's been a very much a collaborative approach between the county council and the district and borough councils around local government reorganisation, but it hasn't so far felt that way around here in Crawley around looking at options for a town council. Indeed, the first I heard of it was a publication of the full council papers with a motion in there. However, I do welcome, and I've heard literally nothing, not a sausage since, although I do welcome this presentation this evening. I have one particular question around neighbourhood planning, which is a function that would go to a town or parish council. Wondering where that sits with the government changes to planning, where certainly we know strategic planning will also be going to the mayoral authority, but as well as that, there are planned changes coming around. For example, member involvement with determining planning applications. So I'm just wondering where that sits, whether it still sits there, and actually a definition of what neighbourhood planning is would be useful to hear. Thank you.
It's the statutory consultee aspect, so is what it means. So it's actually within statute that when you have parishes or town councils that you're a statutory consultee on planning developments and aspects within your area, both at local plan level and development control level. That's what it is. It's a sort of statutory function when you have a parish, to be a consultee and to have a view. So on any development or any significant developments within your area, that's what it means.
And thank you for that. And certainly, my experience as a county council, indeed, I was previously chair of the planning committee at the county council. Is my experience of town and parish councils was that they pretty much object to every single planning application going as a consultee. So just to be clear, it is that consultee aspect, not coming up with any kind of neighbourhood plan, because I know that has been a function of districts and borough councils. Indeed, you do sometimes hear about referendums on neighbourhood plans as well. So that's where I'm trying to sort of ascertain exactly what we're talking about. So is it solely that statutory consultee role rather than any other involvement with planning?
To the best of my knowledge, but there is a aspect of the parish rules or governance aspect, or they do have some statutory function. So that's, to the best of my knowledge, what I've said is correct. But well, we can get you further information on it, or we'll do. I'll include that in the report in October.
Okay, and just to that point, I could be completely wrong, but from my mind, I have seen town councils issue local plans and then formed part of a wider local plan. So I think there might be some element of that as well, but I'm not clear, and I'm sure we can tease it out throughout the year that we've got to work out what we might or might not if we do anything with a town council. Next I've got is Councillor Iani.
Thanks. Would you mind going back a few slides? Yes, this one. Just for my own understanding, what does it mean when you're saying that Crawley neighbourhoods could have their own parish councils? What kind of authority do they have, and does that affect then the list going forward?
Turn off your mic. Thank you.
So the purpose of the slide is that when we go out to consult is, whilst the full council recommendation is to consult as a borough-wide, a town council takes the whole borough. But there is, as part of a consultation, it could be seen that an area, we could establish a parish of Ifield, for example, that has its own parish and has its own functions, which would be exactly, and then you'd have to pick the functions for that parish. So if a neighbourhood wanted to, this is the opportunity to look at it. So we're consulting on a borough-wide one, but there is the option to put forward other ones that will be then considered as part of the stage 2 consultation. So if I go to some of those functions would be, then you'd have to look at what responsibilities that smaller parish, for example, would want. So they probably wouldn't want, some of their facilities wouldn't be there. So then you'd have to consider it as an individual parish in that respect. So any area can be considered a parish if there is the community cohesion aspect and functions behind it. So that is part of this, that's what community governance reviews are, is to look at that and seeing what is correct. And yeah, hopefully it answers your question.
Are we allowed, I mean, I don't know if you can answer this question, but what would be the pros and cons of doing that? If no.
I can comment on that. The whole point of the review is to consider what are the pros and cons. So the review is to consider, is there a pro, what are the pros and what are the cons? We can just provide you the information, the public with the information, because ultimately council will decide on that. That'll be a political decision.
Thank you. Councillor Jones.
Thank you, Chair. There's no harm briefly raising, I think, some of the subjects that have been raised tonight, but we really need to go on this journey. The problem with the way that a lot of the discussion seems to have been conducted, or when this has been first raised, is almost asking for the detail to the nth degree right now. And that's not going to be available. This still needs to be worked out. And the answer for some of it is that some of the decisions will be down to the town council that we create. We can't predict who they are or what they will do. But if it's any reassurance, we're not going to knowingly set up something to fail. The case must be solid, and we will have ample opportunity to make a judgment on this. Now, parishes, this might be a novelty for this borough chair, but having a parish tier has been commonplace across most of Sussex and Surrey, and the government's not doing anything that would affect those post LGR. And I'd say to Councillor Crowe, this is the beginning of the process. That's why you haven't heard anything so far. But we will use this governance committee and communications to members when appropriate. And additional dates, I understand, are being added to this committee in order to accommodate this and participation. Now, I think the final thing is there's a debate on how or whether you do cut the cake of the overall geography into smaller parishes. But I mean, really, that's interesting for us to talk about. But we're far down the line until we actually have to make a decision on that, and we're probably some way before we'll be asking the officers to start considering drawing lines on a map. But I mean, clearly, I would be interested to hear. When we get to public consultation stage, what people think is the right size. I mean, I have my own ideas, but without wanting to anticipate what the consultation will say or the results of that, I think we just make a move on this now. It's right we move forward now, so that any new parish arrangements are firmly in place and the appropriate functions are transferred to who they would ultimately sit with, alongside the unitaries that are being created. I think we're doing this, Chair, if I may say, at precisely the right time and at precisely the right pace. This gives us enough time to make a considered decision with all the appropriate information that the officers can provide, as well as consider what the public have to say on the matter. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm not sure there are any particular questions for Chris there, so we'll take that as it was. I mean, just to also add my own comments, Crawley, in case it isn't clear from what we've been discussing tonight, just for people, who might listen or watch this meeting, there will be no defined Crawley area moving forward once local government reorganisation has taken place under the current plans for local government reorganisation. So we are putting this forward to make sure there is some sense of political identity around Crawley, as in some sense of place around Crawley. Crawley will be one of the only places, if we don't have a town council for Crawley, which might be the decision we make, Crawley will be one of the only places in West Sussex without any local identity, or indeed a parish level council. The only other places would be Worthing and Ada, which might also go through the same process that we're going through. Indeed, notably, Horsham recently has already started the process to set up their own town council. That all being said, we are not making any decisions tonight. All we're doing is presenting the timetable of how we will go through this review, and indeed the review might well determine that we don't set up a parish council or parish equivalent council for Crawley. So we aren't making any decisions tonight. The only thing to note tonight is that we'll be having 2 extra meetings in the calendar, so I want to make sure members are all aware of those dates for those meetings, and that those meetings will be setting forward the consultations and then considering the responses from those consultations. So really this is just setting out what the timeline is going to be, the draft timeline. But I mean, once we start the consultation, it becomes a bit more permanent, which we'll be doing at the next governance meeting on the 13th of October. Sorry, go on, Councillor Lanza.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Referring to those extra meetings and potentially additional ones, might there be a possibility of opening them one or more of them up to all members as appropriate, given the level of interest.
I mean, all members are always welcome to attend, but I'm surprised more members aren't here tonight, of course. This is the first governance meeting for quite a while, but there we go. But I mean, you know, all members are always welcome to attend, and indeed plenty of the public are always welcome to attend. And, you know, really nothing has been decided at this moment. We're just trying to set out what the timeline and process will be. So that's all we're doing, or proposed will be. Councillor Crowe, go for it.
Thank you, Chairman. I've now got, thanks to Councillor Lansdowne, I've got 3 things that I want to flag. Yeah, firstly, the Governance Committee is the committee that has ownership of it, and I would advise against inviting other members who are not on this committee to be a part of this. However, what I do think might be wise at an appropriate point, and perhaps will be an all-member seminar. You know, when there is something helpful and useful for members for all members to have the opportunity to hear about. But in terms of the actual process, I think it's right. It sits with this committee. Secondly, the timetable is clearly being driven by LGR, and of course the timetable for the ceasing of the existing authorities and the likely election for the new authorities in 2027. So I get that. But, you know, and I'll go back to what I said at full council, the timetable doesn't sit at all with knowing what the decision on LGR will be from the government as to whether West Sussex will have 1 or 2 unitary authorities. Indeed, given all the shenanigans following the forced resignation of Angela Rayner, and indeed the sacking of Jim McMahon as well, and the fact that we've got new ministers now, we don't know what, if any, impact that's going to have on LGR. But I will still state the view, and I appreciate we're going out to consultation, that a whole town council for Crawley, for me, sits better in a single unitary for West Sussex, but sits less well in a Crawley, Horsham, Mid Sussex unitary, where suddenly you have a town council that is of a huge size and a proportion of that unitary authority. But of course, we don't know what we're going to get. So we're doing a round of consultation. I appreciate there's a second round of consultation, which, so let me see, when would that second round be? Oh, well I don't think we're going to know by the second round of consultation as to what the government decision will be. We're expecting it in March, I believe, but that could change. But I do think it's a material, makes a material impact on, certainly on my own view as to what might be the most suitable sized town council or parish councils within the Crawley boundary. Recognising that a Crawley town council would be the second largest by population town council in the entire country. And my third point that I just want to raise is around finance. Now, I appreciate there's a lot we don't know at this stage, but will the consultation make it clear that a new town council or parish councils will have precepting powers, and that those precepting powers are not capped? So as things stand right now, whereas local authorities are capped to 5%, that is not the case for town and parish council. Indeed, there are some town councils in some places that charge almost as much as the existing district or borough council, or indeed the same, or at the odd case, I believe, even more. So it's more around, will it be explained within the consultation that there will be precepting powers? But I do appreciate it's difficult to put figures as to what the kind of charges will be, the sort of the impact on the ground, or indeed the actual budgets. Thank you.
I'm going to pass over to Chris for some of the answers.
Thank you. I'll deal with this. To me, there was 2 questions. The first question is over the timing. We're required, once a decision or petition comes in, to start a CGR, to do it within a 12-month period. So once full council made the decision to effectively start it, the timetable is based on that. So we're sort of stuck by that in that respect. In terms of the finance and the modelling, until we know what the functions are, we can't put any information, because a lot of, for example, when Horsham have done theirs, they've merged 2 parishes and set up a town council, and they've all merged together. they can do a better indication of what they're including and what they're not. So certainly in the first lot of consultation, we can reference there could be a precept, but not until at the earliest, the second consultation, could we put anything about likely levels, because it varies so much across the country. The largest one is one of the largest town council has quite a low precept compared to some of the smaller ones, so it just varies. So I think we can, and you'll in the next meeting you'll see what the communication is going to be like. So we can certainly change it at that stage, but I can certainly look when we do the draft communications to include that there will be that this does mean a precept. But modelling wise, we can't do anything like that, certainly until we know what responsibilities or potential responsibilities could be included.
Just maybe for you, Chair, just respond to that. Thank Mr. Pedler for his answers there, and you know, I welcome the fact as long as we just need the public to have the full fact in front of them as to what could be coming down the line, and the fact that it would have precepting powers. Just around Horsham, they've now actually just gone out to their second round of consultation, and it's 2 existing community councils that are being merged rather than existing town or parish councils. Though interesting, of course, they don't cover the entire town of Horsham. There's already there's what, and I forget the name of it now. There's one in the north of the town of Horsham that wants nothing to do with the other, with the new entity that's being set up. Interestingly, so thank you.
Okay. Everybody's had the chance to speak. Just to highlight, which I didn't highlight before, the start of the meeting on the 13th of October is at 7:30, not at 7 o'clock. So please get that right in your diaries. You're looking at me like I've got that wrong still. No, I've got that right. Yeah. So, if nobody else wants to speak, thank you again to Chris for the update. Please note the update in the 2 additional Governance Committee dates of the 13th of October and the 3rd of February 2026. This item is for information only. As I've said, there's no formal decision from the committee required at this stage. All committee members have had the opportunity to speak, so there's no formal recommendation for this item, as I said again. So I ask that the committee note the update, duly noted, including the additional meeting of the Governance Committee. That is that agenda item done. There is no supplemental agenda, so the meeting is now closed at 7:42. The next meeting is scheduled, as I said, for the 13th of October at 7:30. Thank you very much. No, we're still on the live stream till Mez turns it off, or Chris, so be wary of what you say for the next 20 seconds.